Did I just say Baroness and we haven't announced that yet? Sorry.
All right. Hello, everyone. We are back at it with another edition of a Super7 FwooshCast. And as always, Mr. Brian Flynn, thank you, sir, for devoting some of your time and coming to chat with us. It's very much appreciated, as always. I know you are busy.
No. I've always got time for you, Nick.
Well,
always got time for you.
Well, thank you. You guys have been, getting stuff pushed out the door, dropping new surprises on us. It's a busy time for you right now.
It's been a little bit crazy. There's this back end of the year, we had a lot of stuff, coming out anyways. So between all the stuff that's coming out of the factory and all the stuff that's been patiently waiting to come out of the factory so that we can make the next wave of the next thing available. There's a lot of cool stuff going on, and it's nice to finally get stuff in people's hands that we've had for a long time. But, latest wave of ThunderCats is finally showing up in people's hands, which is great. And that's just going to start the snowball of like all the other Ultimates finally sort of getting out of the factory and onto boats, as long as boats are still running.
And that's a good place to start, because that's where I wanted to kick it off, because I've been excited to talk about ThunderCats, because we get to talk about ThunderCats I think in a really cool way now, because we're going to talk first about 3/4 of ThunderCats Series 3. We'll get to that other quarter here in just a moment, but it's shipping. We have new ThunderCats Ultimates, new ThunderCats characters, and I recently got my extra slide from Big Bad Toy Store, and I have to tell you, I am the proud dad of 3 daughters, but this is now the son that I never had.
Is that the son you never had? He's almost as big.
He's my favorite ThunderCats character, and this figure made it all worth the wait. He's absolutely wonderful.
He turned out really great, and he's huge and he's massive, and the paint's crazy. Like, it's even for me, and I'm not saying this as the guy, I'm like, even for me, I'm like, damn, we killed it on that one.
Yeah, he's fantastic, and I haven't gotten Jaga and Captain Cracker yet, but I've seen them out there and they're looking really strong too. But just as what this, oh yeah, there they go. Yeah,
Cracker.
Yeah, just what Series 3, I mean, being delivered now, that's got to be somewhat of a pressure valve release for you, huh?
A little bit. I think, quite honestly, the big pressure valve will be when Series 2 finally ships and people that reorder on Wave 1 ship. I think that's really when it's going to open up for a lot of people, just because those are so much more delayed, and the hard part is that it's now also like, okay, well, it shipped, but I don't know when that means I'm going to get it in people's hands. But
right.
I think that there's a lot of just like, yeah, it definitely has taken longer than expected all year. COVID has been a staffing issue all year. I mean, everybody seems to finally about all the shipping issues now. And the craziest one is in the last couple of weeks, which you can look up, which started happening.
Is it the power thing?
The power thing is crazy. I've got one factory that is down to 2 days a week and is not allowed to work double shifts. So they can only work 16 hours a week right now. Wow. 2 days, 8-hour shifts. There's other factories that are like, oh, we're doing double shifts or triple shifts, like 8, to get, a week's worth of work done in 2 days. I have another factory that built their own power generator years ago. And so they have their own generators. So they're able to work 5 days a week, but literally I've got multiple factories in China right now that are down to just 2 8-hour shifts a week, which is like, I don't even know how you keep people employed working 2 days a week. And it's just insane. You're like, okay, no one's going to the factory because, there's harder to find workers because of COVID, and there's new strains of COVID all the time. Then you have the shipping thing, and I got a funny shipping story. And then now you have the power thing, which is just bonkers. It's like the world is conspiring to not deliver any toys.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of want to talk about that in the context of, your updated shipping schedule too. But
as of what, 2 weeks ago?
As of a couple weeks ago, right? Because I'm positive there's going to be some updates to that. But Series 3 is here. It's shipping out. I think you guys are starting to ship out as well. Like we said, Big Bad Toy Store is there, and you know, people are excited. I think that's gotten that reinvigorated sense back with ThunderCats. But you know, I took it to Twitter before, you know, we had our conversation to see if anybody had any specific questions or things about Series 3, and just to make sure, because I haven't been able to see it yet, Jaga did end up with both the cloth and the plastic cape,
Yes,
right?
yeah, both capes.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's awesome. And speaking of him, you know, I think people have been waiting to get this, I don't know, we'll call him the standard Jaga in their hands. And you know, that collector mindset, they're always kind of, everybody's kind of going to the next thing. I mean, now that we've got our standard,
yeah, they're like, he didn't really show up in the show that much like this. The real one you need to make is Spirit Jaga. I'm aware.
Yeah.
I'm aware. I'm aware.
Okay. That just seems like a good one. But the big one that I'm seeing too is that now that Series 3 is shipping, and these are going to be getting in everybody's hands within the next couple of weeks, we're going to be inside of, you know, what you've kind of self-assigned as the period of having a set number of pre-orders open ahead of delivery. Does Series 3 unlock that kind of timing now that we might be seeing, you know, another pre-order as imminent sometime soon?
Yeah, Series 5 right now is scheduled for November.
Awesome.
Because I want, you know, it's like, we don't want it in October because we need everybody to get their figures.
Yeah.
Everybody to have it. And obviously we're shipping out of the factory in October and November, wave 1 and wave 2. So those will start delivering to people maybe in December, maybe not. But like by the time we get to January, which sounds like a long way away, but is also,
it's not
2.5, 3 months away.
Yeah.
We should be, you know, really caught up in a lot of ways for all the stuff that people are missing. Wave 4 is in really good shape in terms of getting through. So then, yeah, I feel good that we can do wave 5 in November. Like I said, and you know, quite honestly, on our end, we've been ready on wave 5 for a long time.
Yeah.
But like we've said before, like we're not going to do wave 5 until we actually deliver wave 3. And I can guarantee you, even though they've shipped from the factory, when we launch wave 5, there's going to be a whole lot of people who are like, where's my Mumra? And it's like, valid question, but your Mumra is coming.
Yeah.
It's shipping from the factory. It's on the way. Like, you will get what you pay for. I don't think that there's any concern anymore that we'll deliver. I think the concern is obviously for most people is how long you have to wait.
Yeah.
And trust me, I would like nothing better than to be delivering faster than we are currently delivering. Well, but it's a sporty time for everyone. It'll be very interesting to see. I don't know how much, like I said, we hear it, I'm working here. I don't know how public facing you hear all the conversations about how much product or lack of product people are expecting to be on the shelves for holiday.
Yeah,
it's going to be very interesting to see, you know, how it shows up now in bigger companies that aren't us. Like where we've had to show that either we weren't able to mask it or we were able, you know, just to be very transparent about it earlier. I think you're going to start seeing that, like, oh, this wasn't just like a Super 7 problem.
Yeah,
this was a everybody problem.
Yeah,
just did.
Well, and yeah, I mean, we're getting through that as far as the world goes. The waits on these new series to deliver before you could open pre-orders for Series 5, which, as you said, is coming in November. Now, is that going to still follow the normal like course of time that it takes in terms of we're putting the pre-order open in November, and then there's probably going to be another gap in between delivery between 4 and 5 just simply because of the production time it takes, or are you guys moving a little bit differently with Series 5?
We're moving a little bit differently with Series 5. So Series 5's actually gone out to the factory to get started already.
Awesome.
You know, so ideally, in a lot of cases going forward, we're going to start picking up time. That said, I can tell you internally when we talk about it, it's like, yes, it's picking up time, but then also on our side, we're also then like, we may have made up, say we made up 2 months in the process.
Right.
Well, now we're also delayed time in capacity, we're delayed time in worker staffing or energy or how much more time. Like one retailer that we sell to, and we don't sell to that many large retailers, so it won't be hard for people to figure it out.
Mhm.
We used to have to, up until a month ago, we had to deliver to them product 60 days before on shelf. And they just changed it to 120 days before on shelf. And that's because of all these other shipping delays, because we hand them the goods at port in China or Vietnam or wherever. And so, that throws everything into chaos because, but it just gives you an example of like, even all of those retailers are like, yeah, 60 days isn't good anymore. Like it's 120 days now. That's how long we think it's going to take to get it on shelf. Pre-pandemic, I think I chatted with somebody about this the other day on Instagram or something. It was like pre-pandemic, putting a product cargo on a 24 days clockwork.
Yeah.
And then the variable was at the port domestically. Most of the time it was 5 days, 1 week in port. But if it got flagged for extra screening, it could take up to 3 weeks.
Mhm.
But you could say, like, time your watch to the moment it leaves China, 30 days later, it's in the warehouse. Like not an issue. And now it's like, might be 45 days, might be 90 days.
Yeah.
Don't know. And no one knows. And then you have this thing right now where even people that have stuff in warehouse at port are having problems with not enough trucking.
Yeah.
And it's not that there aren't enough truck drivers. It's just that when things finally show up, there's too many containers for the amount of truck drivers available.
Right.
I mean, another funny story was we had a bunch of stuff given to, picked up in Vietnam. The boat then went to Hong Kong to pick up some stuff. But when they got to Hong Kong, a bunch of the staff had COVID. So then the boat got quarantined in Hong Kong for 2 weeks. And so before it could even then load, so it gets kicked out of line. So then it lost like a month and a half just in port at Hong Kong before it could leave. So this particular shipment that somebody picked up ended up being almost 120 days from pickup to delivery.
Wow.
And it's just every day you're like, what is it today?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're going to deal with that today. So,
oh goodness.
hey,
Well,
I don't know. I feel like I'm harping on the point. So we'll move on to something else because I'm sure no one listening to this is really like, tell me more about boat problems over space.
well, it does have an impact, but the good news is, and I wanted to, get into it is that hopefully with 2 and 4 kind of right behind 3, then that regularity of being able to make, the next waves available for order comes back into a little bit at least normal fashion on that end, right?
It should be more in line with what you get with turtles.
Yeah.
Like you, obviously, as a turtle guy, it comes like clockwork.
Mm-hmm.
It comes like clockwork. And, anybody that's watched this and heard us talk about 1 and 2 and why that got delayed at the factory for Jurassic Park and all that other stuff. It's like, 3's landing now, 2's right behind that. 1, the replenishment of 1 is right behind that. And then 4 is just going to be like, I don't know if it's, with all that's going on, does it exit pre-CNY or post-CNY? Because if it exits by 131, then it's like, okay, cool. 60 days later, hopefully it's in people, we start sending it out to people. If it doesn't make it out by 131, then it doesn't make it out all of February. It's not going to make it out the first week. The earliest you're really getting that out is 4/15, March 3/15 to 3/30. Then that means it doesn't show up till May.
Wow.
Kind of thing. So there's a huge issue on whether or not things leave before CNY or not. Because once the factories come back from CNY, it's not like they're immediately staffed to 100%. Like,
right.
it's that first month is like 50% capacity. The second month's like 75% capacity. And the third month is 100% capacity. So that's just something that you have to deal with.
Yeah. Well, speaking of things,
but yes, when you get this in the mail, look at the size of this box.
I was looking forward to that alone.
Yeah. In the end, when it finally does show up, it's like, man, this is so much fun. This is so cool. This is why you pre-order.
Yeah.
This is why you got it. Because I mean, that's what it's all about. It's about having the fun toys. It gets frustrating when it's delayed or waiting or whatever, but when it shows up and it meets the expectations or exceeds them, I can't say that that's subjective for the people getting them. Then it's like, oh, this is why. It just reminds you, it's that excitement of like why you collect toys.
Well, and that's a good lead into the next bit here, because you're right. Good toys are forever, right? And so when we talk about timing and delays and stuff, let's talk about the other quarter of Series 3, because
Chitara.
Not long ago, you made the announcement that Chitara was being held back to work on some things. And I have to tell you that I was expecting some mixed reaction from that kind of out there in social media land, but I've seen almost 100% support of this is the right decision, because everyone wants their Chitara to be as great as she can be. But what was kind of the path to get there for you?
Well, I mean, there's been pictures and stuff that popped up online, like the original hips were tooled incorrectly. And the spacers inside the hips were too big, and there was a bunch of other issues. And then we're like, this is all wrong. We need to retool the whole thing. We retooled the whole thing. And then that one came out, but when we got those even, they look pretty good in photos, but they don't look so great in person. And there were just little things where it was like, oh, we could make this a little better. And it was just like, and I'm not trying to lay on a dead horse here, but like you got Slythe.
Yeah.
Like when I pick up Slythe, I'm like, nailed it. It's perfect. Chitara just didn't have that. Chitara was passable.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I don't want this to be the one that gets out there. I don't want this to be, and I say that as it was packed.
Yeah.
So the Chitaras are technically all in my warehouse.
Wow.
And we're remaking it and making the figure, because all the accessories and everything are fine. We're remaking the figure, remaking the blister tray, adding the extra head because it's taken so long and doing some other stuff. And then all of that will ship to our warehouse. And then we will literally open up and repack every single toy and ship them out.
Wow.
It was one of those things, we got it in hand and we're like, no, like not when compared to these guys.
Yeah.
Like it didn't feel right. It would have been fine. I would say that 75, 80, 90, who knows? A lot of people that got it would have been like, what's the problem? But we just, I just kept wrestling with it. I didn't feel like it was where it needed to be. I wanted it to be perfect, and it wasn't.
And those package samples, whatever stage they were at when that.
I've got stuff where she looks like Frankenstein. It's so bad, it's like that's the first stage. Like
right.
You go through this really awkward stage all the way to, it's making it 5% better here, and then 5% more again, and it's slowly until it's perfect. So a lot of that gets out there, it's like, okay, slow your roll, guys. Like that's not a final piece. But at the same time, like
she's the main ThunderCats female character. I mean, she's got to be, her face has got to look great, the hips, everything.
It's also one of those things, not to sound weird, but within fandom of all, the female characters are scrutinized in a way that the male characters are not. And you just really have to nail it. And I want to make sure that we nail it.
Well, and towards that end, I mean, Pumaira's coming, but there are other female characters within the ThunderCats universe that you guys can maybe eventually get to. Does doing new parts, like new hip parts and things like that, does that help, also make those better with things that can be reused and that type of thing?
Quite honestly, where we're at with these figures, there's very little reuse that happens. And I'm sure people are always like, oh, they're reusing. It's like, in a lot of ways, like the way, especially you gang up parts in a tool.
Yeah.
So say it's a forearm or something. It's like, it's not worth me loading a new thing. It costs more money to load an old mold, gate off everything that isn't those forearms and shoot those forearms to, rather than just tool new arms in some cases. So quite honestly, where Ultimates have evolved to, there isn't, really any reuse at all, because everything's custom. Like if you think about it, like what could possibly be reused from Captain Cracker or Slythe or anything? Like nothing. So they've evolved
vintage colors slide. That's what I come up with. That's it.
Yeah. Well, maybe that'll happen for you. But I think that there's just there's not really reuse now. I think it's more because it's not just here. It's also, we spent a lot of time on this on Baroness and Scarlet in the G.I. Joe line of like exactly how we do all that construction, so that once we build the construction, we have a template to use for the others. But did I just say Baroness and we haven't announced that yet? Sorry. Not that anybody didn't guess that was coming, but still.
We're talking reaction, right?
But yes, but it's the same thing. It's like, how do you make their hips functional, not have giant gaps in them, but at the same time have the right aesthetic?
Yeah.
But not make them, there's a definite thing of like, their hips are this big and then their waist is this big. And then it's like, no, we're not doing that.
Going that cupcake kind of.
Yeah, route. We're not doing that either. And it's like really finding that middle ground that's accurate and that works, but still feels like the character without it becoming too overburdened by engineering. It's a fine line. And it's like, nobody looks at the dude's waist and goes like, oh yeah, Duke looks a little waist, or his butt looks a little big. Like, it doesn't happen. But when you put a female character in there, everybody's got an opinion upon the size of her thighs, the gap in her thighs, the shape of the butt, how the hips come together. There's a lot of personal preference that comes into play.
Yeah. Well, well, but you mentioned it already. You guys are also going, I mean, if going back to the well, essentially not from scratch, but close, isn't going above and beyond. You're also including, the new head that has the calling glowing eyes on there. So that's a really cool bonus. But at the same time, man, I got to tell you, that's kind of opening Pandora's box, because I'm already.
Now everybody needs everybody's head.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll make a head pack later.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten that far yet. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm not having anybody going, oh, he's trying to sell us everything twice.
Yeah.
No, I haven't even gotten there. Right now, it's like, nail Chitara. Let's make sure she's perfect. Let's make sure that when you put it next to these other figures that you're like, yeah, they killed it.
Right.
That's really what we're trying to do.
And best you can tell right now, I think you were saying we're shooting for some time in the first half of 2022, but it's hard.
It all comes back down to, when do you get started with production and where does CNY fall? Right. So if you get to a certain point before Chinese New Year or after Chinese New Year, so you lose the month of February, like nothing happens. So you're starting back up at March 1, but you're kind of restarting everything in March 1. So because the end of January, all they're doing is the stuff that needs to get out the door before CNY. They're not starting new projects. So if it doesn't really get moving significantly by then, you're kind of like, oh, well, I can't start the next phase till March 1. And even at March 1, I have to assume that it's going to take a little while longer because of that. So even if it got out the door, say we started and we were ready to go into production March 1, and it was finished by April 15. Okay, well then it puts on a boat how long is a boat going to be? Is that going to be May, June, earliest it's going to be June 15 to get it into the warehouse. Then we got to switch them all over. Is that June 30th, July 1st? That's the thing where it's like, it becomes this domino of post-Chinese and New Year and pre-Chinese New Year. Pre-Chinese New Year, everything's fine. Post-Chinese New Year, I mean, we're having these conversations about San Diego Comic-Con next year. It's like,
yeah,
it doesn't, with what we think shipping will still be like next year. If it doesn't leave before Chinese New Year, can you even have it for San Diego? It's like, yes, you probably can, but it's going to be a nail biter.
Yeah.
And that's radically different than beforehand. You'd be like, yeah, cool. As long as I ship it by June 1, I'm good.
Yeah.
So shipping something by January 31st versus June 1, it's a very different production mindset and timeline.
Well, the good part though is that I don't think the wait for her is going to feel as long, because there's going to be a lot of ThunderCat stuff now that's going to happen between now and then in terms of delivery and whatnot. So I think that's going to help. And
when you get Mumra, all your problems will be solved.
Well, and I wanted to talk about, series 2 and 4 a little bit within the context of the larger umbrella of the shipping schedule update that you provided. And, you had some specific dates on there. I think that series 2 was said for like November 21st, and series 4 was right there at the end of December. Are those still holding there, or are you already seeing some fluctuation?
Some of it. Wave 2 should be fine. The factory that's making Wave 2 has their own generators.
Okay.
So they can work 5 days a week.
Cool.
Not expecting any slippage on 2. 4 is probably going to slip a little bit because that factory is, but at the same time, I'm also going back to them and going like, okay, if things slip, I want you to slip on these projects, not these projects.
Gotcha.
So ideally, where we have directed them is that ultimates leave the factory first before reaction figures.
Okay.
So if you have to bump something, bump a reaction figure. The flip side is at the factory level, reaction figures are easier.
Mm-hmm.
And
less parts.
Well, there's less parts, and you can slip it into a smaller group of workers and get it out.
Gotcha.
Because it's, there's less involved in it. So it's far easier to fill in little blocks of unexpected time with reaction figures. And what we're saying is like, I know that's easier, but I need you to focus on the ultimates. Because if there's an unreleased line of reaction that people don't know about yet,
mm-hmm.
whether that comes out in March or May is kind of immaterial to no one that's never seen it. But for somebody that's waiting on toys that they've paid for, it matters.
Yeah.
And so we prioritized getting ultimates out of the factory over reaction right now. So hopefully it won't slip a lot, but it would be remiss for me to say that I don't expect there to be some slipping. But hopefully what's going to slip is it's slipping by a week or two, not it's slipping by 2 months.
Gotcha. Well, the last time, we saw some updates as far as 2 and 4 go at PowerCon. And of course, you guys had little placards out and everything for it, because Tigra and Mumra both had some forearm switching, swapping, and whatnot. I think Mumra's were backwards and Tigra had the wrong one on the right side.
Tigra was just like, I don't even know where you got that forearm from. Like, you would have had to go get different tooling to shoot that forearm. Like, I don't even know how you did that. But they are 100% been corrected. It's not a thing. I know that's what we had up there, but like everybody in our crew was like, we know that's not right.
Yeah.
Like, we have already taken care of that.
Good.
I just don't have a new plastic one in my hand to show you.
Yeah.
Yes, they were correct, but it had also already been addressed. But yeah.
Well, awesome. And speaking of Tigra too, I've noticed that, some people are saying that the blue in Tigra's suit is more of a blue rather than that bluish green of the prototype. But to me, it feels like this blue, this follows the cartoon colors more than like the vintage toy colors, right? I mean, that was a conscious decision as far as that goes, right?
Yeah, a lot of people, it gets very subjective on what color those colors really are, because there's a lot of people are like, no, he's green. It's like, well, it is more cartoon accurate.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, that's well,
because it's the cartoon line.
yeah. Well, getting series 2, I know that's, like we said, that's a big thing. Mumra is, the main bad guy, which I think is going to be huge for everybody. So that's cool that it doesn't sound like that's going to slip too much, and we're gonna, be seeing them soon.
Yeah.
You said that the reissues of Lion-O and Panthro 2 are kind of following right behind like series 4 as well. I think a lot of people are going to be glad to hear that. And I hate to peel back another layer of the onion, but what about the Thunder Tank? Anything new on that front right now?
We're expecting test shots on the 22nd.
Wow.
I'm gonna get it wrong here, but we expect to see test shots. I want to say it's the 22nd, but then somebody's going to look it up on the calendar and go, the 22nd is a Saturday. And I'm like, I don't remember, but it's like, it's not next week. It's the week after.
The week after. Yeah.
So we're very close on it,
Yeah.
on seeing plastic on it. And once we see the plastic, obviously there's engineering and everything like that, but same thing, like that's the hard part, is engineering it, getting the tooling done and getting to that point. Then it's just refinements and paint.
Mm-hmm.
And injection and production, which, to be fair, refinements and paint can take a long time sometime, but
yeah,
that's really the big hurdle on something like that, because engineering this thing has been, it's tricky.
Yeah. Oh, it's quite an undertaking, I'm sure, but it's great though, because we've been able to talk about ThunderCats in this context of, hey, we got them, we're getting them. Series 5 is going up, for pre-order soon. So it's like we're starting to turn that corner, and it's going to be real. I think it's going to be really fun for ThunderCats going forward.
I think Wave 5 is going to catch people by surprise.
Yeah.
I think there's a cool thing. There's a cool tweak on everything for Wave 5. I think people are going to be into.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's, I think we're trying to have a lot of fun with it, which goes without saying, I suppose. But yeah, I think the more we get into it, and the more everyone else is obviously into it, it just allows us a bigger lane to get into. So I think it's going to be really fun. I think Wave 5 is going to be really exciting for people, and there's definitely a bit that's going to be like, oh man, they went there. All right.
Well, that's cool, because getting the core characters is obviously really important, but I tend to have the most fun when we start getting into those more minor characters, or the ones that have maybe never had figures before. So I'm looking forward to that.
It's going to be a good wave.
Good. It's good. Well, I'm excited. November is going to be a great month. Now, another update property that was on there was Disney Ultimate Series 1, and that was, I think in the November timeframe. But you also showed off for the first time actual package samples, which gave us a look at kind of everything relative to each other, which I don't think that we had seen before. I gotta say that I was delighted to see the size variance between like Mickey and Pinocchio, and then Prince John. This looks like it's shaping up to be a lot of fun.
It is. It's a really, really cool line and a lot of fun. I am super psyched for old Prince John to finally arrive. It's a lot of fun, and especially as we get into later waves on Disney, we're really going down the route of the things that I think people don't typically get. Obviously, there was a Mickey in Wave 1, but there's the Robin Hood in Wave 2. Wave 3's got some cool stuff. Wave 4 and 5 are bonkers.
Well, Prince John,
like, wow, okay, all right.
Well, Prince John, as you said, Mr. Phony, King of England himself, and seeing Robin right after that, that's really made me like, man, I gotta I need all those Robin Hood guys now too. And I'm a big Mr. Toad mark as well. But when you talk about just the context of the characters that I think you're kind of like moving into, it's exciting because you're right. There's never been anything for a lot of those.
Well, I think what we're running in with Disney specifically is like when I think I think maybe we talked about this last time, like the Turtles collector, when we went out with wave 1 and only Leonardo was in the wave, I mean, sorry, it wasn't Leonardo, but only one turtle was in the
Raphael,
wave. People were like, oh, that means we're good for at least 4 waves because we're going to get all 4 turtles. And they clued in immediately. And then obviously with ThunderCats and these other lines, some of that, when we go in there and we're like, okay, here we go. Here's like 1 or 2 main characters, but here's 1 or 2 deep cuts. People are like, oh, great. That means I know we're going to get the whole team and we're going to go wide. And so whether they've been trained by other toy lines or whatever, they very much know that we're going deep. That Disney customer, when we went out there and we're like, here we go. And then it's like, it's Prince John. And then they were like, well, where's Robin Hood? Clearly we're going to get to him. But it was like, that customer was like, well, I'm not going to buy Prince John if you don't have Robin Hood.
Right.
And it's like, so definitely within Disney at a certain point where I think it happens in wave 4, we'll start shifting strategies to making those drops be more holistic, if you will, where it would have been like, okay, it's Prince John, Robin Hood. I'm making it up. It would have been Marion and
Little John,
or one of the sheriff, or
Friar Tuck, all of them.
Exactly. It's interesting to watch how different groups of people collect and which ones collect in a similar manner and which ones collect in a different manner. It's weird because you start to get into the psychology of it all, and it's not the same for every group. It's very different for every group. I don't know. That's just a passing aside of like, oh, interesting. Okay.
Well,
it did fine. Disney did great, but it was met with an amazing amount of confusion.
Yeah.
So
I understand. Well, in that context, it's been a while, and I guess maybe we should start with Series 2. How's Series 2 coming along?
Coming along great.
Yeah,
it's coming along great.
And it's been a minute since Series 2 was solicited. Are we edging close now? Series 3? I'm ready.
I know it. I know what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the wrong document. I can't see it because I'm in Zoom with you, I think. Let me look here. Hold on. How about you do the what's on old man? What's on screen?
Yes, Ultimate Disney. Yes.
It's next year. It's a little fluctuative to the exact date, simply because same thing. Want to be further along with the other 2 waves, which we are.
Yeah.
But there's definitely Disney approvals just take longer than everybody else. There's no.
I don't think that comes as a surprise to anybody.
Yeah. But it's cool, and I think it's wave 5 that I'm thinking of. Where wave 5 is going to be my favorite wave yet.
Yeah.
And it's going to be out there.
Well, I can't wait. We've watched Robin Hood a lot in this house over the past year or so, I think, and this has a lot to do with it. So I've got some little people running around here who I had to pick up a few extras because they're very excited for Disney Ultimates too. So I can't wait to see what's next as far as that goes, because it's not one that, as you said, is quite as frequent as the other ones right now, but I'm into the assortment, so it's a lot of fun.
It is, and it's interesting to same thing, to take something that in some ways everything's been made, and then yet in some ways nothing has been made.
Right. collector grade. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a cool update on Disney for sure. Now, wrestling had a lot of presence on that update as well. It looks like NJPW Series 2 is getting ready, or it has shipped, or it's getting ready to, and then
It already shipped. It shipped a while back. It should be arriving any day now, I think.
and that's another.
NJPW Wave 2 shipped before we sent out that announcement. So it already left the factory. Because when we sent out that announcement, there were a lot of people like, see, these guys, not even a mention of NJPW Wave 2. And we're like, no, that's because it already left the factory.
Left, yeah.
It's done. It's gone. So that should be here any moment.
Cool.
I would have to ask the warehouse and the shipping people when it's actually shipping and how long did it take, and I don't know those answers.
Well, no, that's good though, because I mean, not only is a lot of stuff coming, you know, and we got updated on, but the diversity of it. I mean, we went from Disney to NJPW. I mean, that's a fun, you know, segue.
Yeah,
I think
NJPW is already on a boat, should be here very soon. You know, the major podcast guys leave in a couple weeks.
Yeah,
I think. Maybe even less than that. I can't remember what it was on the schedule, but it's very, very, very soon. And then right on the heels of that are Doc and Carl.
Yeah.
So same thing, like there's some other wrestling stuff that we want to make, but I've been very reticent to put anything else out there until we deliver this other stuff and sort of like be like, okay, you guys have this stuff. It's in your hands.
Yeah.
Because they have NJPW's been plagued by delays.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but it's great that NJPW and ThunderCats fans, they're all kind of they've been through some of this experience together, and now the payoffs all kind of coming right around the same
the Turtles
time.
guys doesn't have to worry about anything.
Well, speaking of which, another thing that I'm hoping by your schedule that is already on the water, did Series 4 ship as scheduled? I think the last week of September or something is when it was scheduled to go out the door.
It left.
Yeah.
It left.
Well, you know, not only is the best turtle in that wave, and I've been waiting on him, but I don't know, his bell of the ball status might be stolen right out from under him by Muckman, because that's the one that I'm like, yeah, I love Donatello, but Muckman's the one that I'm really looking forward to.
The Muckman is so big.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Well,
you know, it's in that thing where it's like Scythe, where you pick it up and you're like, what?
Yeah.
But it's huge. It's huge.
Even Joe Eyeball is big, right? I mean, he's proportionately correct, but it's like, wow, seeing the pictures at PowerCon is like, even he's big. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, the Muckman Joe Eyeball figure are bonkers. Like, it's super cool.
Well, I can't wait, and I'm hoping that they catch all of the, you know, good luck as far as the wind and the
wind in the sails on those ships.
And the sails, and you know, all of that, so that it can be another turtle Christmas. But we'll see about that. But how's Series 5 coming along? That's again, I can't wait for an update on Ray Fillet, because he's my boy too.
No, that's going along as well. I know that got released earlier as well to the factories, so that's cruising along. And then we're working on more turtle stuff.
Well,
and turtle stuff we're working on.
You're working on turtle stuff right now, but we're also right in the middle of a pre-order period for Ultimates Series 6, which I've got to say, when you announced Series 4, I was like, there's no way that they're going to be able to top this lineup as far as characters go. And then Series 5 just kind of came along and did it. And now Series 6, it's probably, for a lot of reasons, I think the most eclectic wave of turtles that you've done so far. And I almost can't believe some of it, but I'm not even sure where to begin.
Scratch Cat. That's where you begin.
That one, okay, there are a couple of things, and we'll get to it. But I mean, you are giving now, I think, the majority of Ninja Turtle collectors their first crack at actually being able to own a scratch figure, because I mean, He's the unicorn of the line. And on Twitter, I was like, I can't believe this, you guys. And they're like, why? It's Scratch. I was like, check the eBay prices of the vintage figure, because this is a unicorn figure.
Yeah, it's, you know, part of the reason that we picked him, it was because if you haven't had the chance to have one, here you go.
Yeah.
You know, like as a collector, I want to have that character on my shelf, and I don't, because I don't have 1,500 or whatever to spend.
I think carded are going north of $5,000 now.
Yeah, you know, so that always plays into a lot of it. It's like, I don't need to give you what you already have in a lot of ways. I need to figure out a way to give you something you don't have. And that was why Scratch Cat for us was actually the first one decided on for the wave.
Yeah.
Scratch Cat. We need to do Scratch Cat.
Well, I mean, he represents something big in and of himself and his rarity or whatnot, but he's also one of the last, you know, unique characters of that vintage line. So to me, it's like we're going from the start with the Turtles, and now Scratch is here. It's like let's fill that in. Let's fill it in. We can only fill in between now, right?
Oh, I don't know about that. There's a lot of room in Turtle, but you know, one wave at a time. One wave at a time.
Well, Michelangelo, Sewer Surfer Michelangelo. Again, I shouldn't have been surprised by this, just simply because of the way that the Leonardo turned out. But we're into the variations of the Turtles, and the colors on this guy, the details. Again, I said I shouldn't be surprised by these, but I can't believe how neat and cool looking this figure turned out. He's amazing. I love the hot pink.
Yeah, it's a fun character regardless. And it's like, and if you're going to go there, like, let's really go there.
Yeah.
Make it like 1980s on a beach, hypercolor, neon, wetsuit, the whole, you know, I mean, part of that is already inherent in the design of the character.
Sure.
But just really like, it needs to scream at you, came out of, you know, a Body Glove ad or something.
Yeah, exactly. Body Glove. That's exactly it. And you guys, what a part of it that I really appreciate is that not only did you include a second head that is new, but you made the sunglasses a separate piece, which wasn't that way in the vintage figure, to give even more options. And it just kind of begs, I mean, you're planning it so that those heads are going to be compatible color wise and everything with that standard one back there, right?
They'd have to be.
Oh yeah. Adding more expressions and whatnot. That's awesome.
Come on. Can you give me a little credit, Nick?
Well, no, all the credit in the world, but it's funny because I overthink everything when it comes to stuff like this. And I was like, you know what? Leonardo led off the turtle variants for, you know, for this. And I've been saying to myself, I've convinced myself that you guys are going to go in completely different orders. So I'm going to push my chips forward and say that I'm going to guess that Donatello is going to be the one in Series 7, but we'll get to that when it happens. But
yeah, I can't make a friendly wager for you because then someone will read into that. Like, and they'll be like, "Oh, that means it's not him," and it's like, so I can't. You get to wager in silence.
Well, that's fine. I think the point is that I had a lot of the variant turtles when I was a kid, but I think I'm enjoying them more now. And these have made me actually appreciate, you know, the vintage versions that I have on the shelf even more, just because they're really coming alive. So that's a really fun slot for each one of these waves. But again, you know, I sound like a broken record with some of these favorite characters of mine, and Ace Duck is in this one as well.
That was another one where we were like, we need to go Ace Duck. One, like, it's such an off the beaten path one.
Well, he was always one of my favorite vintage figures. He got to fly the turtle blimp or whatever, but he was one of the more straightforward figures of the vintage line. And I have to say that I think in terms of plussing up new additions or whatever you want to call them, I think Ace is like the crowning achievement of the line so far, because I mean, if I'm right here, I mean, you guys you added concept, sketch, head and everything to that's insane. And he's got a cigar. He has got a cigar.
Yes, he does.
I love it. That's that Errol McCarthy. I think is who did the control art for that old Ace Duck figure. So that's quite a that's just this is such a nice little chestnut from out of the past to pull that through.
Well, and I think we do that in a bunch of other lines.
Mm-hmm.
So it shouldn't be completely surprising that it's popping up when you get into like the more obscure characters that have less around them. You're like, well, where can you go? And it's like, well, the history and the credibility leads you to some of those things. And sometimes it is very much concept sketches or, oh, he appeared in the panel of the comic book and had this, or he appeared in here and did that. And you start digging up all those little, those things that as a fan, you're excited to get, where it might be lost on your more mainstream collector. But, and I'm not saying that derisively, but like, there's a level at which some people are like, oh, I know what all those other things are because that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah. And you guys also made it so that for the first time, his wings and his tail are two separate pieces instead of one big piece. Now, from the promotional shots and whatnot that you guys put out, it's obvious that the wings can come off and he's got that alternate jacket. Is the tail removable as well?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm gonna say that I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I think so.
Well, I was.
This is one where I'd have to go back and like, I know I've had that meeting,
but
I had that meeting quite some time ago, and I was concerned about other things. And it was probably like, yeah, okay. And then I was like, oh, I can't remember.
Well,
I think so.
Well, regardless, because of what you have offered in here, you've gotten me to double up on Ace for sure, because there's no way I'm not displaying that alternate head with the cigar and the goggles and stuff. So I think he's probably my favorite of this series, but I think for the majority of people, Slash is a big one.
Yeah, that's one where people have been asking for Slash since Wave 2.
Mm-hmm.
He is a super popular character. In some ways, if you're talking about like your anchor for the wave, that would be your guy.
Yeah.
And once again, he's also just a wacky, fun character.
Wow.
With his sort of evil turtle style, if you will.
Yeah. He's like the Bizarro turtle. He's like Bizarro of the turtles.
Yeah, I mean, when we go through a lot of these waves, we really try to balance out between like what's going to be really popular versus what do you not have that may not sell as much, and how do we sort of weight it all out? There's going to be a turtle.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about it that way, it's like, okay, they got me a turtle and they got me Slash, and then they followed up with two much more obscure characters.
Yeah.
And that would be, Scratch Cat and Duck.
Yeah. Well, Slash, I mean, even just like zooming in on those, the sculpted detail in his shell and in his skin. I mean, he's bonkers. And I've never been the biggest Slash fan in the world, just because I think there's a lot of other characters and turtles that I like more. But man, this figure is like making me like the character more. So that to me is a good indicator of a win. And that alternate head, that almost screams comic to me. Is that something that you guys just kind of came up with, or does that have its roots in something like the comics?
I think it is specifically from the comic.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Well, yeah, I think your application of the anchor for him for this is definitely accurate. But this is the first turtle series that doesn't stop at 4 figures, though, because you're offering up a Mouser army builder pack too.
Yeah, this was sort of, it came back from, obviously the early figures. I think it was it Wave 1 that the Mouser came in?
Yeah, he came with Baxter.
Yeah, he came with Baxter in Wave 1. And even back at Wave 1, people were like, hey, like, I need an army of Mousers. I don't want to buy 5 Baxters to get it,
right?
Which is fair. And we kind of kept going back and forth and round on it. And so for this wave, we're like, we're going to do the 4 figures, but it's almost like, in some cases you might come back with a weapon pack or
Right.
whatever. We were like, let's come back and make a Mouser pack. But if we're going to make a Mouser pack, it can't just be the same Mouser.
Right.
Like we need to tweak the Mousers a little bit. We'll make damaged Mousers. We'll do that. And if you're that guy that wants the Mousers and wants an army of them, we've got them for you.
Yeah.
But it's also not a thing where if you're like, hey, I want to collect this line, you don't feel beholden to buy a pack of Mousers. So we tried to sort of find that fine line where it still feels like you're getting a bunch of Mousers and it's cool and they're new and they're special and I can have an army of them for that collector, but it's not something that we're forcing on other collectors. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that even goes down to the other accessories that comes with it, because, we're seeing the turtle that came with Splinter too, but you've also got the ooze rat, a new ooze canister, a different looking pizza. So those are, again, pieces that I think are really fun to add to the display. But again, it's not something that I think a lot of people would consider, required, like sticking another character in with a Mouser. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not essential, if you will. And that was sort of very much, I hate to say a direct response, but it's a direct because that makes it sound like, I don't know, maybe it doesn't sound like anything, but it's like, people that collected our turtle wave were like, want some more Mousers, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
there are a pair of
pack of them.
There's a pair of size in there too. What are those?
The size are specific to, oh God, there was,
I sorry, I didn't think I was throwing you a curveball with
no, they're thought that
are they designed to go into
I'm
the
sorry,
battle
like
damage?
I'm in the middle of my head's in 2023, so I'm having
you got to come back to the past to talk to us.
come back to the past to talk about it. I thought, wasn't there a turtle that we shipped where I think these sides are metallic instead of gray? Like one of them had a side that was gray instead of metallic.
Raphael came with a few pairs of them, and
I think there was one of them where one of them was missing one of the combinations, so we dropped them in here.
That's awesome. I saw a lot of people thinking that it's going to fit right into that battle damage Mouser head too. So okay,
it does. It does fit into the hole.
So do you consider this Mouser spot, is that something supplementary that's going to maybe like come and go within the line, or did we just get kicked up to 5 figures in the turtle line?
No, it's supplementary. It's something that's going to come and go. It's very much a display kind of thing. And we kicked it around obviously for turtles. There's another pre-order that's coming up where there's a 5th piece, but it's very much a display piece, where these are more army building. It's like, oh, if you have these characters, do you want this display piece to go with them?
Yeah.
And if you do, we will make that piece available as well, but it's not necessary for you to get, kind of thing.
So it's a slot that may come and go within lines and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some things like, depending on how the character mix works, like when we did Simpsons, the first wave had 5 because of Itchy and Scratchy, but wave 2 only has 4.
Gotcha.
So ideally 4 is the normal case, but there's definitely in 2 more waves of ultimates that we're working on for other lines where there's a 5th piece. Gotcha. In one case, it's very much a display piece. And in one case, it's an accessory piece. So it's like, okay, if you're that person, this is a cool other thing to get. But if you're not that person, it's easy to be like, yeah, I don't need to buy that. Like, just put it off to the side.
Well, let the tea leaf reading begin as far as that goes. But that's a fun option.
That just becomes a wish list.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
exactly. Well, Turtles 6, the pre-order is open until October 20th. So, I mean, if you haven't done it so far, which I can't imagine, now is the time. But it's not the only pre-order that's open right now, because, I mean, out of nowhere, you guys dropped 2001 Ultimates on us. And I sat back and I was like, whoa, because I like the movie. I really do. But those spacesuit designs, those are some of my favorite sci-fi designs ever, man.
I love the spacesuit designs. That helmet is so
Mhm.
iconic. Like if you watch every sci-fi movie for the most part, that's not Star Wars that followed after it. Like everybody copies that helmet with the angle up and the swoop back and
Yeah.
everything. Like, and just that with the very simple suits with just the little front and back backpack, I've always loved it. And 2001 actually has been done for a very long time, but it was just chasing and trying to figure out what we can and can't do in likeness was very,
Yeah.
very, very
And I was going to
difficult.
ask, I mean, likenesses, that's big.
They're as close to likeness as we can get without being likeness,
Gotcha.
because one of the actors flat out refuses to do likeness.
Hmm.
The other actor doesn't. One of the other actors is just like doesn't care. Just like it's
Gotcha.
not worth my time to do licensing.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. So we went a lot back and forth with the studio on where they felt we could go. Because if you look at every other 2001 toy that's ever been made, it's always helmet blacked out.
I've got the Metacom ones from Japan that are really cool, but yeah.
They're great, but helmet blacked out. You
Yeah.
can't have their faces. And we're like, if we don't have the clear shield in the face, what's the point?
Right.
So I feel like, quite honestly, yes, they're not an exact likeness, but they're close enough that you know what they're trying to
Right.
be. And when you put the helmet on it, it's fine.
Yeah.
And
Well,
but that took probably 9 months, 12 months. It took a
wow.
long time. That just
Wow.
on, because we would have done it a long time ago. And that it's funny because that's definitely one where I saw a lot of commentary where people are like, who is this being made for? And it's like, this guy. It's being made for this guy.
Yeah.
That's why there's an ape and a monolith.
Well, I was going to say that the Moonwatcher with the monolith, if nothing else, that's going to end up a desk piece for so many people, I think.
Sorry, all of a sudden I got a cough.
No,
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. It's like if we're gonna make 2001, we got to make the monolith, and it's like so that's why the boxes on 2001 are so different than the other Ultimates.
those
boxes.
are rad, man.
One has to be really tall, and so they're all tall and skinny to match.
Yeah. Well, that's super cool. Like I said, unexpected, but very much appreciated because those suits alone, for me, and I'm probably weak when it comes to, because I mean, there's a scene in the movie where you essentially see those in every color of the rainbow, and I would be, a mark for for something.
Well, there's a scene in the, well, I think we got all the colors actually.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some other colors we didn't get, but I think we got it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's that same sort of thing. Like, we try to be very cognizant about, like, same thing. I'm coming out with Turtles this month, so 2001 is probably a very different customer. So I'm not going to that same guy. There's going to be some overlap, obviously, but just trying to be cognizant about how and what we do and how we put it out. But the demand is more and more to make more variety in Ultimates and to make more often Ultimates.
Yeah.
And so we're going to try, and it's definitely coming into making some unexpected stuff because that's what's interesting to us as well. It's like, yes, I like turtles, but I'm also really into spacesuits.
Yeah.
Any guy in a spacesuit is kind of okay.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
You got to diversify. And if we're going to, kind of go in a completely different direction. I mean, you guys dropped, was it yesterday or the day before? A little hintsy. It looks like you got some new Power Rangers Ultimates getting ready to boot up soon too. That Rita Repulsa reveal, man, that expression and that paintwork on that prototype.
It's really kicked up a notch. And the soft goods and everything else on that Rita Repulsa are pretty amazing. So it's always funny, like when you're sitting there having those design reviews and you're like, okay, Are the cones too big? Are the cones too small? Are the cones too wide? Are they,
She's been waiting 10,000 years for this outfit, right?
exactly. Gaultier just wasn't around before then.
Yeah. Well, that'll be a fun one to look forward to. I can't wait for that full reveal on that. But I mean, we're into the fourth quarter now, and so there, the year's drawing to a close, but it feels like, based off of past conversations that we've had, that there's still a little bit that might be coming our way, because I know we've talked about Silverhawks 2, GI Joe 2, some possible new Toxic Crusaders. I mean, are we kind of still humming along, or are you guys shifting around a little bit?
I'm looking at the calendar right now.
There's got to be some surprises, I'm sure, too, right?
There's a couple surprises. And yeah, there's a couple surprises and a couple other things, but we're not going to try to kill everybody before Christmas.
Yeah.
By any stretch of the imagination. The other thing is, like, with the factory state right now, I'm a bit leery to get too crazy with stuff and then be like, I have no idea when it's coming out.
Right.
We all sort of assume that sort of in about a month, all the factories will be back to full time, simply because it should be, by November 1, it should be colder in China. It shouldn't be a power issue for heat. But then it's going to switch from air conditioning to heating. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you if you read it, it's like so much of this is like they still operate primarily on coal. It's like, what? Like, okay, like no wonder you're having electricity issues, but I say no wonder because I don't deal with infrastructure. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I know it's far more complicated than I know. I mean, there's also sort of larger factors at play, which is in Dongguan, Shenzhen. They don't really want factories there anymore.
Yeah.
They want to elevate. They want to move out of that world. So those are the people that get squeezed first. But I don't know. It's going to be very interesting how everything works over the next, 90 days, but quite honestly, it's probably the next 18 months.
Yeah.
It's going to be, I think it's accelerating change within China. I think it's accelerating change in global shipping, to say the least, and how things move around the world. I think we're going to see like some of these patterns that have existed for a long, long time really get upended. I don't know what that really means or looks like, but I know if you've got this many problems, somebody's going to step in and say, well, what if we did it this way?
Right.
Well,
and I was going to ask if you guys are doing anything kind of internally amongst yourselves to, telegraph or plan for some of that unknown stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the more diversification you can have, the better it is, but that requires much more work on QC, but you're fighting with other people for capacity. There's how do you deal with, shipping is the hardest part of it because you really have, it's not like I can send somebody to the boat to make sure it gets off the boat. I can send somebody to the factory.
Right.
So the shipping part of it is very, very different. I think the factory part is interesting. I think you're going to see more and more other countries really stepping up. Obviously, we're doing a lot of work in Vietnam as well. There's a lot of talk about Malaysia really being one of the next manufacturing places. But then same thing, it's not as simple as like, oh, build a factory. Right. It's the entire supply chain to the factory. Like if they're still going, like one of the factories in Vietnam still makes all their molds in China. So.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But where are they getting their plastics from? Where are they doing their printing, their gluing, their heat sealing? Where are they making their tampons? Can they source that in? Is there an in-country manufacturer for plastic pellets? Right. And then you go downhill from there on what are the conditions at the factory? What are the conditions at the sub factories? Like, a perfect one of that is like, some of the paint suppliers in China. Like there's only a handful of paint suppliers that are really, really well vetted. So they charge a premium for their paint. Like you can get the paint 4 times cheaper from another guy, but what's his factory like? And you know, there's a lot of that you come back with where you really look at China. Or my daughter was asking me about this the other day. She was like, why is everything made in China? She was making jokes about American flags made in China.
Yeah.
You know, and she's 11. And you know, it's like, I sort of explained to her, like, well, up until the 70s, it was made in America. Then it all moved to Hong Kong. And then as Hong Kong moved out of its industrial revolution into more white collar and professional level or high tech manufacturing, it all moved to China. Now it's all moving out of, now as China makes that transition, it's moving out of China and into Vietnam and other places. And it's just this sort of like model where everything goes. I mean, if you think about all your Star Wars figures, all made in Hong Kong, or Taiwan, and those countries moved out of that, or Hong Kong as a time as an independent province, which it isn't now, you know, moved out of manufacturing and it moved into China proper. So there is sort of a time limit on when those countries evolve out of that level of work, which means resetting everything in a new country, which is both positive and negative, because the positive is you don't get burdened with problems of the past or antiquated machines, antiquated people, meaning mentally directors of factories that don't want things or any number of other things, but you also then have to reestablish all the supply chains that go with it.
Yeah, it's a lot.
If I did, I feel like I just rambled off on a tangent that no one listening was just like, wow.
No, I think
it's stuck on this podcast still. I could be doing something with my life.
Well, it's good information to have to draw that larger picture, because I mean, I think people have a tendency, and it's no fault of their own, to get focused on that one thing that's in front of them, but to have an understanding of everything that goes into bringing something like, you know, Ultimates to life, it's a lot to consider.
I mean, you know, even if you're talking about things like reaction, like simply how the paper is laminated makes a difference in making sure the card back stays straight. What temperature is it when you use the glue? You know, what's the humidity like? Like you have to control all of those things, and otherwise they don't work well.
Right.
And that's also another very interesting sort of thing where it's like, you know, you see certain other people that have run into problems from time to time, and usually it's no fault of everything all the way up to the end, where it was literally like, oh, the place that was packaging this like didn't wait 2 weeks for the paper to dry. They packaged it at day 10 to make it out on time, and those 4 days screwed up all the work that led into it. And you're like, you know, there's a whole lot of goofy little things you got to watch out for.
Well, I
feel like this is just like me talking about all the negatives in the world. Like it's hard.
We'll swing it back then, because it's good to have.
Let's talk about something fun and exciting. Let's talk about sliced heads.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you know, when it comes down to talking like this, it's like it's good to understand that, but at the same time, it's like I'm still sitting over here. I want more, you know, we want more Turtles, more Thundercats. I did a top 5 list the other day about properties that aren't in Ultimates that I would love to see in Ultimates. So it's like, I'm glad you talked about that diversification. Huh?
What's your top 5?
Top 5. Okay. Gem and the Holograms. Rankin Bass Hobbit, which is, and this guy might be playing into that a little bit because of the design.
I know more about Rankin Bass Hobbit than I can care to share at this point.
Well, I'm sure it's that's the thing. I'm sure that one's a jungle as far as that goes. Yeah,
surprised, but okay.
Hanna-Barbera is another one that made it on there. Another one that we've talked about before, but I'm going to apologize. I'm never going to shut up about it. Mega Man is still on my list.
Mega Man is so hard. I feel like it's been done a lot. And for me, the way if I would imagine Mega Man as Ultimates, they'd have to be big and square at this big. It wouldn't be like actual people. They would look like the bosses on screen.
Yeah, yeah, and we've never had the bosses really. I mean, that's the thing. And I don't know, man. I think it fits the formula nicely. But Mega Man downshifted from being number 1 to number 2 because Sesame Street, like specifically 70s and 80s Sesame Street, jumped up to the top of my list.
Yep, that's a good one.
That's a good one, I think. I just off, you can't see him, but Palisades Muppet line is one of my favorite lines of all time. And it feels like Ultimates is almost like the spiritual successor to the detail and the accessories that went into some of that stuff. And it's like, man, I need my Bert and Ernie and Forgetful Jones and all of those guys. I think it'd be really cool for the format.
Count Von Count.
Oh, yeah.
He's the best character in all of Sesame Street.
Yeah, he's my dad's favorite.
Oscar's a close 2.
Yeah, but and that's the thing. I love all those 70s and 80s guys that they're not there quite as much anymore, like Forgetful Jones or Dawn Music or those. That's just the era that feels right for Ultimates, I guess.
Well, I mean, even if you were to go there, you get into, God, I can't believe I'm picturing him in my head and I'm blanking on his name. It's not
Guy Smiley.
Well, you have Guy Smiley and Super Grover and all that stuff. No, I'm talking about like early one. Oh, what? He's striped shirt, tall.
Roosevelt. Oh,
Roosevelt Franklin.
Roosevelt Franklin. Yeah.
Roosevelt Franklin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stuff
absolutely.
like that. Like, man, granted, there may not be that many people that care about Roosevelt Franklin, but
that was
Roosevelt Franklin,
Harry, Telly, all those guys.
Telly's to me is a new Muppet. Like I realize that, yeah, he strikes me as a new Muppet.
Really? Because he was around when I was a kid.
I think it's because he came on new when I was like in like junior high. I'm like,
okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
You get Roosevelt Franklin. Who's the little girl?
Prairie Dawn.
Prairie Dawn.
Yeah.
I
even like whatever, I don't know if they ever really named him, Fat Blue, the guy that Grover was the waiter for, the straight man in those sketches. Oh man, there's so many great ones. The Honkers.
There's a fly in my soup.
Yeah.
It's cold. There's that guy. There is
Honkers, the Yip 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 aliens, all of them, man.
Which one is the one where the alien has the blaster out of his nose in the fog and they're singing a song?
Oh.
And then the other alien comes up like, "You are my sunshine," and he blasts him.
Yeah. Oh man, I haven't thought about that in a long time. Oh.
Yeah, I can't remember that one. I can't remember the song he sings. My daughters sing it from time to time.
Really?
But, but then just simply like, what if you made Mr. Hooper?
Yeah.
Like, what if you made, all the other people? Then you have to make a giant Snuffleupagus, I guess, and everything.
Yeah.
But
big bird. Yeah.
So maybe I've thought about Sesame Street a little bit.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. But that all of the context that we were talking about, though, I mean, that goes into what's making what could be really cool.
Yeah, no. What could be really cool? There's so many things that right now we're like, God, what about that? What about that? And then it's just like, there's only so many you could get out per month.
Yeah.
Like literally, like, and I feel like we're verging on that already, but it's like, there's so many cool ideas. There's so many other weird things off the beaten path that we've talked about. What I really enjoy about it is just that they cohesively line up across platforms with each other. And I think that people have really kind of come, and at least from my perception, really gravitated to how they're executed. And like, yeah, I'm into it. Let's go into the deeper, darker corners. Don't give me just the obvious stuff.
Yeah.
And there's some really cool stuff. I mean, the reality is, like I said, I'm knee deep in 23 and 24 at this point. Because I mean, quite honestly, like right now with how long things are at the factory and shipping, like if we haven't already started on it, it
Mhm.
doesn't ship in 22.
Right.
It just most likely is not possible. Like right now, if I'm starting on something, I might be able to get it out in November, December.
Mhm.
Like that's the reality. So we have to be, so right now, like I'm really at San Diego Comic-Con 23 right now. That's the stuff I'm worried about.
Yeah. But
So in that regard, I'm like, oh, there's a whole nother year. We already got that on. There's a lot of cool stuff coming.
well, that's great. And I imagine we're probably going to see some of these surprises and whatnot between now and the end of the year. So I'd love to, catch up with you again as kind of maybe a closeout of what 2021 has been as we look to 2022. But I really appreciate you giving your time. As always, this has been a fun and enlightening conversation, and I like the directions that it went in, because I think it gives a lot of background and a lot of context to ultimately getting, our all of our favorite stuff.
Yeah, and like I said, and I say this every time, and somebody's gonna comment that it's cheesy, but I'm still like, man, I can't believe we get to make all this stuff. And I'm not saying that I can't believe because it's crazy. It's just more like I get to be that guy.
Yeah.
And it's because people buy what we make. And I feel very, very lucky that people buy what we make. And so that's why, simply as much as it's as a business decision, a horrible decision to yank Chitara or any of these other things, like, we have to just continue to try to make the best toys we can make. And I'm just excited because, I get to sit down and do my version of what you just did and go, okay, let's go see if we can make that.
Yeah.
And I would say that, 3 years ago, that conversation would be very tricky with people because they haven't, like, who are these guys? And then at this point where we're at, all of a sudden, very much like, it's like, oh, no, we know who you are.
Yeah.
And that still just boggles my brain that anybody has any idea what we are at all. In my mind, it's still 3 of us in an office when it's not, but it's like, no, we are on wave 6 of Turtles and 5 of ThunderCats and, all this other stuff. Like, we're making a lot of stuff, and Lord willing, it all comes out on time.
Well, those decisions and that dedication is definitely appreciated. So, I can't wait for what's next. And really, as you said, the foundation is not like setting now, and it's time. I'm ready for crazy, even more crazy.
Yes. Crazy is definitely where we're headed, and there's a lot of cool things in the works. So I'll just leave it at that, and rather than keep saying the same thing. And thank you to everyone that sat through all 4 hours of this FwooshCast and is buying my toys. Or our toys. It's not my toys anymore. It's our toys, because it enables us the next wave of toys. And we're just getting to live the dream a little bit, and that's kind of awesome. Not a little bit. Fuck, we're fucking living the dream to the tilt. I made Captain Cracker. Come on.
That's goddamn right.
Exactly. Who else is making Captain Cracker? No one.
Nobody.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then the sky's the limit. But thank you very much. I'm already looking forward to the next time we can catch up. But again, Brian, we appreciate it, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Hope you learned something and got that excitement up, because I'm excited. It's obvious that you are excited, so let's all be excited.
Let's all be excited. There's a lot of cool shit coming.
I cannot wait. All right, well, guys, thank you very much. We appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time for the next Ultimate edition of the FwooshCast.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.